Today marks 15 years since 9/11, and there is renewed attention to terrorism on this anniversary. 9/11 is to date the deadliest terrorist attack on U.S. soil, with 2,996 people killed. Despite heightened security measures since those attacks by al-Qaeda, there have been 37 terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. That includes the Boston Marathon bombing, the mass shooting at Fort Hood, the San Bernardino attack, and the Orlando nightclub shooting. So are Americans more or less secure since 9/11? How is the U.S. handling the war on terror in the wake of these tragedies? That's our topic this half hour, and we want to hear from you. You can weigh in on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also send a tweet at Sally Mack, Fox 26. Joining us live in the newsroom this morning is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, Democratic media consultant, Mustafa Tamiz, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. What do you all think? Are we more or less secure?
You know, it just seems to me that it's a changing face of the war on terror over the last 15 years. It's changed from the international fight across our borders to the way we make ourselves safe here in the country, Jackie Bally. We haven't been attacked from outside. We've been attacked from within every attack since 9/11, and just a changing face of the way we do it.
Well, the last survey that was taken of our voters, 60% disagree with our president's policies on terror, and 64% feel that we are losing the war on terrorism. We have incidents outside, like you said, but from Belgium, France, you name several instances we've discussed on this show, and these have all happened after the president has said ISIS is contained and we are winning the war. So the reason why the perception of voters is that we're losing the war is because we continue to see these attacks, even though our president is saying ISIS is contained.
Well, the question, are we more or less safe? And I guess Jackie's talking about it in a global sense, and my question was more of a inside our country, I guess. But so let's expand it a little bit. As we contain ISIS in Syria and in Iraq, the word out is they tend then to go into countries where they can get. They haven't attacked us here because they can't get here.
Yeah. Well, I think the bigger threat is basically people that are radicalized over the internet. I think that's for us, for the United States, that's a much bigger threat. But I want to talk about something a little bit different. I think that we looked at, if you think about the war on drugs in the 80s that we prosecuted, today we have more drugs and we have more people in prison, but the problem hasn't gone away. If we had prosecuted a war on the Medellin cartel, we probably would have been more successful, and it would have been much more successful for us by focusing on one group. So if we went after ISIS and said, this is the war that we want to prosecute against, versus this kind of this global, never-ending concept, we'd be much better off. So this is not something that is only militarial. We have to go after this on a war of ideas.
Well, how do you prosecute a war on ideas, though? I mean, you've talked about this before, but we can't change an ideology in a country like Iraq or Saudi Arabia, or we can't change the entire Middle East.
But I do agree with Mustafa. If we don't declare a war, if we don't realize that we have a war against ISIS, we could be part of NATO. It doesn't have to be just the United States having a war, because a lot of the issues are occurring outside of our country. But we have had instances within our borders as well. But we, as part of NATO, why haven't they declared a war? There has not been actually strong words in saying this is a war that we're fighting. That's always been something I've discussed several times on this show. That's been our biggest problem. Our current administration is not even identifying it as a problem that we currently have.
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, we're going to pull up some tweets right now for you. This is a Fox News poll that at Fox Business tweeted out asking, is the U.S. safer today than before 9/11? 54% said less safe. 39% said safer. This viewer says, we feel the country has been secured. No attacks since 9/11. He's referring to no outside attacks. We are thankful for the president keeping us as safe as possible. T. Schroeder says, I guess what amazes me the most is 15 years later, our government still doesn't seem to understand the monsters we face. And then one more from Joe, our buddy and good viewer. He says, when enemies fear you, they don't attack you. If they don't fear you, they attack.
Those are all over the map. I don't know how to respond to any of that.
There's a wide, we always try to give you a wide variety
And
of
thank you.
opinions,
Thank you
right?
for confusing us. I want to talk about the Fox News poll. 54% of Americans think that we are less safe today when we have not been attacked from the outside since 9/11. How do we respond to? How does our government respond to that?
Well, I just don't know if polling is the best way to understand how we secure our nation, right? I think we've just come to a point in time where everything is based on a poll, and there's a plethora of polls out there. But that's not how you make decisions about national security, and that shouldn't be even part of the process. But from a standpoint of we are far better at interagency communications than we ever had. We're far better at monitoring. What I was trying to say earlier, what we have not really marshal resources toward is how do we prevent people from being radicalized on the internet, and that is something that we don't spend enough money at, we don't put enough intellectual capital against, and that's what we should be focusing on this coming decade.
That's an impossible task, though, isn't it?
But the reason why it is something that we need to look at is because that's the strongest tool that they've been using to recruit, for recruitment. So it is something that we will have to start monitoring even more closely and putting more of our resources in. As far as his comments about polls, I think the trend you're seeing, still a majority of people saying they have this fear. So even though some people may say we don't like to monitor polls, if they all are showing the same general message, that's something we need to be in tune with.
Well, one of the things that's changed now is that everybody's got a phone. Everybody looks at news on a constant basis. So whatever you're afraid of more today because you're seeing it constantly. So when you add polling to that, Americans today are more nervous about everything that's there because it's being fed to us on a 24/7 cycle. And that's something that for us to understand, because if you're going to make better decisions, it can't be on a poll and poll alone.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Stay tuned because we're going to do our Facebook Live. You guys, any question you have, as long as it's not too personal.
All right, we look forward to that. Thanks, guys, so much, and we will see you in our next half hour to talk about the election.
There we go.
All right, Lisa.